Welcome to the Secret Love Story channel, where we explore heartfelt stories of love and family together. Today, we will embark on a new journey, where every moment of love and the challenges of family life will be shared truthfully and profoundly. Have you ever wondered what would happen if your family didn't realize you had left your hometown? I once thought that distance would help me find myself, but when my father suddenly called and asked me to come back for a visit, everything became more complicated than ever. Why did he suddenly care about me after so many years? Is this just a casual call, or is it a sign that our relationship is in jeopardy? My story is not just about a phone call, it's also a psychological battle between love and responsibility. Join me in exploring this. My name is Alex, and I've spent most of my life feeling like a shadow in my own family. Growing up, I often found myself standing in the background while my brother Noah basked in the spotlight. It was as if my existence was merely a footnote in the grand narrative of our family, overshadowed by Noah, the so-called golden child. No matter what I accomplished, it seemed trivial compared to his accolades, and that realization carved a deep sense of neglect into my heart. The dynamics within our family have always leaned toward favoritism, a fact that became painfully evident as I navigated my childhood. My parents, Robert and Linda, showered Noah with praise for the smallest achievements, while my own victories went unnoticed. I remember one particular instance during a school science fair where I won first place with a project that took weeks of hard work. Yet, when I returned home, the only acknowledgement I received was a passing comment about how Noah had also received an award for participating in a spelling bee. In that moment, I felt invisible, as if my efforts were mere afterthoughts compared to the grand accomplishments of my brother. This pattern of comparison continued throughout my formative years. Noah was always the one they boasted about at family gatherings, while I sat quietly, cringing at the hollow praise they offered me. The pressure to live up to their expectations felt insurmountable, and over time, it eroded my self-esteem. I yearned for approval, not just from my parents but also from myself, as I battled the insecurities that came from constantly being pitted against my brother. As I approached the end of high school, I realized that I could not continue living in an environment that diminished my worth. I made the decision to escape the toxicity that enveloped our family. My sights were set on a prestigious university, one that promised a fresh start and an opportunity to redefine myself. Despite my parents' insistence that I attend a local college, an option they deemed safer to protect Noah's fragile ego, I found the courage to forge my own path. I knew I had to lie to them, to pursue my dreams away from their suffocating influence. When I received my acceptance letter, it felt like a small victory in a long battle. I enrolled in the university of my dreams and moved into the dorms, finally free from the weight of my family's expectations. I thrived in this new environment, finding friends who saw me for who I was rather than as a mere comparison to my brother. The distance between my family and me grew, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of liberation. However, my newfound freedom did not come without its challenges. I managed to keep my parents at arm's length, but I could never fully escape the tug of their expectations. I thought I had found peace until I received a phone call that would challenge everything I had built. My father, Robert, reached out to me with an invitation to Noah's wedding, a gathering that he insisted would be incomplete without me. As he spoke, a familiar tension tightened in my chest. The prospect of attending the wedding was enticing yet terrifying. I felt torn between the longing for connection and the haunting fear of being overlooked once again. This internal conflict was maddening. I found myself wrestling with memories of family gatherings where I stood in Noah's shadow, trying to suppress the anxiety that threatened to consume me. Would I once again be reduced to a mere spectator in the celebration of my brother's life? In the days leading up to the wedding, I was faced with a choice that would ultimately test my growth. Would I return to a family dynamic that had always made me feel less than? Or would I assert my independence, standing firm against the manipulative pull of my parents' expectations? The decision loomed over me, weighing heavily as I prepared to confront the ghosts of my past. The dynamics within my family have always leaned toward favoritism, a fact that became painfully evident as I navigated my childhood. My parents, Robert and Linda, showered Noah with praise for the smallest achievements, while my own victories went unnoticed. I remember one particular instance during a school science fair where I won first place with a project that took weeks of hard work. Yet, when I returned home, the only acknowledgement I received was a passing comment about how Noah had also received an award for participating in a spelling bee. In that moment, I felt invisible, as if my efforts were mere afterthoughts compared to the grand accomplishments of my brother. This pattern of comparison continued throughout my formative years. Noah was always the one they boasted about at family gatherings, while I sat quietly, cringing at the hollow praise they offered me. The pressure to live up to their expectations felt insurmountable, and over time, it eroded my self-esteem. I yearned for approval, not just from my parents but also from myself, as I battled the insecurities that came from constantly being pitted against my brother. As I approached the end of high school, I realized that I could not continue living in an environment that diminished my worth. I made the decision to escape the toxicity that enveloped our family. My sights were set on a prestigious university, one that promised a fresh start and an opportunity to redefine myself. Despite my parents' insistence that I attend a local college, an option they deemed safer to protect Noah's fragile ego, I found the courage to forge my own path. I knew I had to lie to them, to pursue my dreams away from their suffocating influence. When I received my acceptance letter, it felt like a small victory in a long battle. I enrolled in the university of my dreams and moved into the dorms, finally free from the weight of my family's expectations. I thrived in this new environment, finding friends who saw me for who I was rather than as a mere comparison to my brother. The distance between my family and me grew, and for the first time in years, I felt a sense of liberation. However, my newfound freedom did not come without its challenges. I managed to keep my parents at arm's length, but I could never fully escape the tug of their expectations. I thought I had found peace until I received a phone call that would challenge everything I had built. My father, Robert, reached out to me with an invitation to Noah's wedding, a gathering that he insisted would be incomplete without me. As he spoke, a familiar tension tightened in my chest. The prospect of attending the wedding was enticing yet terrifying. I felt torn between the longing for connection and the haunting fear of being overlooked once again. This internal conflict was maddening. I found myself wrestling with memories of family gatherings where I stood in Noah's shadow, trying to suppress the anxiety that threatened to consume me. Would I once again be reduced to a mere spectator in the celebration of my brother's life? In the days leading up to the wedding, I was faced with a choice that would ultimately test my growth. Would I return to a family dynamic that had always made me feel less than? Or would I assert my independence, standing firm against the manipulative pull of my parents' expectations? The decision loomed over me, weighing heavily as I prepared to confront the ghosts of my past. Determined to break free from my family's toxic environment, I set my sights on a prestigious university, convinced that a scholarship would provide the escape I craved. Despite my parents' insistence that I attend a local college to avoid making Noah feel inadequate, I chose a different path. The idea of staying close to home was suffocating. I needed to prove that I could succeed on my own terms. So, I decided to lie to my parents and enroll in the school of my dreams, living in dorms away from home. The moment I stepped onto campus, I felt an exhilarating sense of liberation. The university buzzed with energy, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere I had left behind. I immersed myself in my studies, eagerly participating in classes and engaging with peers who shared my passions. For the first time, I felt recognized for my own abilities rather than being seen as a mere extension of Noah. As I settled into my new life, I began to form friendships that nourished my spirit, fostering a sense of belonging that had long eluded me. While my academic journey flourished, my relationship with my family deteriorated. I consciously distanced myself from their expectations, limiting contact and focusing on building my identity outside the confines of their influence. I no longer felt the need to seek validation from Robert and Linda. Instead, I found encouragement from my professors and friends who celebrated my achievements, no matter how small. The pride I felt for my accomplishments was a stark reminder of the neglect I had experienced at home. However, the absence of my family began to weigh on me. I found myself grappling with guilt, caught between the joy of my newfound independence and the lingering sense of obligation to my parents. their attempts to maintain communication became increasingly insistent. Each text or phone call felt like a reminder of my past, a tether to the life I was trying to escape. Still, I remained steadfast, convinced that severing these ties was necessary for my growth. Just when I thought I had gained a foothold in my new life, I received a phone call that shook my resolve. It was my father, Robert, inviting me to Noah's wedding. His tone was surprisingly warm, a stark contrast to the pressure I had grown accustomed to. He expressed a longing for the family to come together for this occasion, insisting that it wouldn't be the same without me. As he spoke, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, nostalgia, anger, and confusion, clashing within me. The invitation reignited memories of family gatherings, where I had often felt invisible, overshadowed by Noah's achievements. I couldn't shake the fear that attending the wedding would thrust me back into that suffocating dynamic. The thought of sitting through another celebration where my worth was measured against my brother's accomplishments was overwhelming. I wrestled with my feelings, caught between the desire for connection and the dread of being disregarded once again. If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. As the wedding date approached, the internal conflict intensified. I could almost hear my parents' voices echoing in my mind, urging me to prioritize family over my own feelings. But I had worked too hard to build my independence, and the thought of reverting to my old self felt like a betrayal. Each day brought new doubts, forcing me to confront the emotional scars left by years of neglect and comparison. Ultimately, I reached a critical juncture. Would I attend the wedding and risk being pulled back into a toxic relationship? Or would I stand firm in my resolve, embracing the freedom I had fought so hard to achieve? The decision loomed large, and I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me as I prepared to face my greatest challenge yet. The moment arrived when I had to confront my internal conflict head-on. Robert's phone call had stirred emotions I thought I had buried, but as the wedding date approached, I found myself grappling with the implications of attending. My father's desire for the family to come together weighed heavily on me, yet I couldn't shake the anxiety that bubbled beneath the surface. I was torn between the longing for familial connection and the deep-seated fear of being overlooked yet again. As the wedding day drew closer, I imagined the scene vividly, the laughter, the toasts, the celebratory atmosphere, and of course, Noah basking in the spotlight. I could already picture the guests surrounding him, fawning over his achievements and praising him for his new life. I would be just another face in the crowd, a bystander watching as my brother received the adoration that I had always sought but never received. The thought of being reduced to a mere spectator filled me with dread. Caught in this mental turmoil, I weighed my options meticulously. A part of me longed to reconnect with my family, to feel their love and acceptance, but the other part screamed in protest. Memories flooded my mind, years of feeling inadequate, the endless comparisons, and the realization that my worth had always been tied to Noah's successes. Attending the wedding felt like a step back into a world that had never truly valued me. The more I contemplated it, the clearer my path became. Ultimately, I made the painful decision not to attend Noah's wedding. The choice came with a mixture of empowerment and sorrow. I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders as I asserted my autonomy. My determination to stand firm against the manipulative patterns that had defined my relationship with my parents felt like a monumental step forward. However, the decision was not without its consequences. When I called Robert to explain my absence, I braced myself for his reaction. His voice, usually warm, turned cold as he struggled to comprehend my choice. He expressed shock and disbelief, accusing me of throwing away the opportunity to be part of something special. His words were laced with disappointment, and I could sense the anger bubbling beneath the surface. "You have to understand, Alex," he said, frustration evident in his tone. "This is about family. You're being selfish." Each word stung, yet I stood firm, refusing to let his manipulation sway me. I reminded myself that I was not the boy who craved their approval anymore. I was a young man who had forged his own path and no longer felt obligated to fit into their mold. As I hung up the phone, a sense of finality washed over me. I realized I had been living independently for over a year, and it had been funded by the money my parents assumed was for college expenses. The truth of my independence struck me. I had created a life that was entirely my own, separate from their expectations. In that moment, I understood that I was finally breaking free from the toxic love that had chained me for so long. The realization was bittersweet, leaving me feeling both liberated and mournful. While I had chosen to cut ties with my family completely, I also felt the void that their absence would create in my life. I was committed to my own happiness, but the emptiness left by their rejection lingered, casting a shadow over my newfound freedom. As the echoes of Robert's disappointment faded, I found myself standing at a crossroads. I had faced my fears and made a difficult choice, but the path ahead was still uncertain. What lay beyond this pivotal moment was unknown, yet for the first time, I felt empowered to carve my own future. In the aftermath of my decision, I felt a complex mix of relief and sorrow. As I moved forward without the burden of my family's expectations, the clarity I had sought for so long began to take shape. I had chosen to prioritize my own happiness over the familial ties that had once seemed inescapable. Yet, the path was not without its struggles. The void left by my family's absence echoed in the corners of my mind. Days turned into weeks, and the wedding came and went. I avoided social media to escape the temptation of seeing Noah in his moment of glory, knowing that it would only serve to reignite the insecurities I had worked so hard to bury. Instead, I focused on my studies and the friendships I had forged during my time at university. My professors and peers became my new support system, and together we celebrated the small victories that had once been so elusive. Despite the thriving environment I had created for myself, the reality of my family's reaction lingered. Robert's voice still echoed in my ears, his disappointment a haunting reminder of the ties I had severed. I could almost feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on me. The moments of solitude often brought on waves of introspection. I wondered if I had made the right choice, questioning whether my pursuit of independence had come at too high a cost. In this time of reflection, I leaned on my newfound friendships for support. Late-night study sessions transformed into heartfelt conversations, where I confided in my friends about my struggles and the burdens of my past. Their understanding and encouragement helped me navigate the emotional turmoil that accompanied my decision. I learned that I was not alone in my experiences. Many of my peers had faced their own familial challenges and had emerged stronger for it. As I settled deeper into my university life, I started to embrace my independence. I found joy in small things, savoring a cup of coffee in the morning, attending campus events, and even exploring new hobbies that allowed me to express myself freely. The vibrant energy of the university became a source of inspiration, and I began to see glimpses of a future unencumbered by the shadows of my past. Yet, I knew that my relationship with my family was far from resolved. Robert's anger over my decision to skip the wedding simmered beneath the surface. I received occasional texts that felt more like veiled threats than genuine concern, each one tugging at the remnants of guilt I had managed to suppress. He would remind me of the financial support they provided, attempting to use it as leverage in our strained relationship. Through it all, I stood firm in my resolve. I had come too far to allow their manipulations to pull me back into a cycle of doubt and resentment. I began to redefine what family meant to me. My friends became my chosen family, and I discovered the beauty of building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding rather than obligation. As the months passed, the sting of my family's absence dulled, replaced by a burgeoning sense of self-worth. I began to envision a future filled with possibilities, one where I could create my own narrative without the chains of my past binding me. I envisioned a life in which I could celebrate my achievements without fear of comparison, where I could embrace my identity fully and unapologetically. In this newfound clarity, I realized that my journey was just beginning. I had taken the first steps toward reclaiming my narrative, and while the road ahead might still be fraught with challenges, I felt equipped to face whatever lay ahead. My determination to carve out my own path solidified, and with that came the hope of a brighter tomorrow, free from the toxic dynamics that had long overshadowed my life. The day I received Robert's call about Noah's wedding marked a turning point in my life. As I reflected on my choice not to attend, I felt a sense of empowerment wash over me. I had taken a stand against the suffocating dynamics that had plagued my family for so long. Choosing to distance myself from their expectations was not an easy decision, but it was necessary for my own growth and well-being. After I declined the invitation, Robert's reaction was as intense as I had anticipated. His shock and anger were palpable, yet I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by his disappointment. I had spent years living in the shadow of my brother and fighting for my own recognition. Now, I was determined to embrace my independence and forge a new path for myself, even if that meant severing ties with my family completely. When I finally cut off communication with them, I experienced a mix of relief and sadness. The emotional weight I had carried for so long began to lift. I could breathe more easily without the constant pressure of their expectations bearing down on me. Living independently had granted me the freedom to explore my passions, cultivate my interests, and surround myself with supportive friends who celebrated me for who I was, not for how I compared to Noah. Yet, as I moved further away from my family's influence, I couldn't help but feel the void left by their absence. The moments when I would have sought their approval or support were now filled with silence. I missed the idea of family, even if the reality had often been painful. There were times I wished for their love and acceptance, but I reminded myself that true love should not come with strings attached. Eventually, I received news that Noah had started a new chapter in his life, and I was happy for him, despite the complexities of our relationship. I had learned to view his successes through a different lens. No longer did I see them as a reflection of my inadequacies. Instead, I felt a sense of freedom in celebrating his achievements from afar, detached from the burdens of comparison. During this period of self-discovery, I realized that I was beginning to craft my own definition of family. My friends, who had stood by me through the turmoil, became my chosen family. Together, we forged bonds built on mutual respect, understanding, and support. I embraced the idea that family could extend beyond blood ties and be formed through shared experiences and love. As I settled into this new perspective, I found joy in my accomplishments, no longer overshadowed by the expectations of others. Each achievement became a testament to my growth, a reminder that I was capable of defining my own success. I learned to value myself and my journey, recognizing that my worth was not tied to how others perceived me. With each passing day, I felt stronger and more self-assured. I began to dream about the future with a sense of optimism. The shadows of my past no longer loomed over me as they once had. Instead, I saw a landscape filled with possibilities, a world where I could pursue my passions and create a life that resonated with my true self. In the end, I realized that my journey was about more than just escaping my family's toxicity, it was about discovering who I truly was. I had faced my fears, made difficult choices, and emerged on the other side stronger than I had ever imagined. While the pain of my past would always be a part of me, I was committed to moving forward, ready to embrace the future and create a life filled with love, acceptance, and the freedom to be authentically myself. Reflecting on my journey, I recognized the profound transformation I underwent from feeling neglected to embracing my independence. The road was fraught with challenges, yet each step I took brought me closer to understanding my worth beyond my family's expectations. The decision to distance myself from their toxic dynamics was pivotal, enabling me to reclaim my identity and forge a new path. As I moved forward, I learned to celebrate my achievements without the shadows of comparison looming over me. Each victory became a testament to my growth, reinforcing the belief that I was deserving of love and recognition in my own right. The friendships I cultivated in university became a source of strength, offering support and validation that I had long sought from my family. In these relationships, I found the kind of acceptance that had eluded me for years. I began to reshape my understanding of family, realizing that it could be defined by love and support rather than obligation and comparison. My friends stood by me through the trials and tribulations, proving that chosen family could offer the unconditional love I had craved. Together, we celebrated milestones and offered encouragement during setbacks, forming bonds that felt more authentic than any family connection I had previously known. Despite the absence of my biological family, I found solace in the knowledge that I had made the right choice for my mental and emotional well-being. The emotional scars of my past would always be a part of me, but I learned to wear them not as a burden but as badges of resilience. Each scar told a story of survival, strength, and the courage to forge a new narrative. With time, the initial pangs of guilt and sadness I felt over cutting ties with my family gradually faded. I no longer viewed their expectations as a measure of my worth, and I accepted that my happiness was paramount. I embraced my independence fully, exploring new passions, pursuing my dreams, and laying the groundwork for a fulfilling future. As I look toward the horizon, I feel a sense of excitement for what lies ahead. I have transformed from the boy who sought validation from others into a young man who understands the value of self-acceptance. The journey was not easy, but it was necessary for me to discover my true self. I now carry a sense of hope and empowerment that fuels my ambition to create a life rich with experiences, love, and fulfillment. In conclusion, my journey from feeling overlooked to embracing my independence has been a testament to the power of resilience. I have learned that family does not always equate to blood, and that true love and support can come from unexpected places. As I move forward, I am committed to nurturing the relationships that matter and prioritizing my own happiness. I have reclaimed my narrative and look forward to a future where I can create my own definition of family, one that is free from the pain of the past and filled with joy, acceptance, and the freedom to be authentically me. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.